Welcome to Sailing Magic Carpet. In this video, we talk about how we both began to dream about living on board a boat and sailing long term, how we made those dreams come true, and how we will continue making them come true in the future. We will cover some of the financial side of things, as well as covering the less obvious, but in our opinion, infinitely more important side, which is how to find the motivation to actually follow your dream, whatever it is. If you're already an avid Magic Carpet fan and you've seen all our episodes, then you may already know some of this story. However, we share a lot of new information here as well, so stay tuned. The first part of following your dream is having a dream to follow. Sometimes it's kind of mysterious how these dreams come about, so we'll start by sharing how we became attracted to sailing.
I was very lucky to grow up traveling in a motorhome that was mostly in Mexico and in the States. My father is very inspirational. He decided to build his own motorhome. I was that little blonde kid running around the beaches. I learned languages pretty quick and I had absolutely no problem making new friends. It was marvelous. I loved those days by the beach, just living a simple life, trying to find whatever you need there by the beach. I spent most of my days fishing. That was one of my first hobbies. My first word ever in English was big fish. Whenever I saw somebody that hooked a fish, I ran down to the beach and I was like, big fish, big fish. But by the time that I turned about 8, my parents decided to go work in Switzerland for a few years again. So I started school there, and year after year, those memories slowly faded. When I graduated from high school, I told myself it's not possible that my best days were back when I was 6 and 7. I decided to go back to Baja and go explore around there again. Cycling became one of my passions over the years in Switzerland, and every weekend I would cycle up the Alps with a friend of mine. And I also went to a few big tours around Europe. I liked the sporty challenge, and I also loved the simplicity of being able to carry everything you need with you. So I quit my side job as a lifeguard. I flew my bike over to Seattle. My plan was to cycle down the Panamericana. When I arrived in Baja, I was introduced to something that changed my life, and that was sailing. I first got introduced to sailing by Randy, a Canadian living down in Mexico. He had a small Catalina, I believe. Then in a different town in Baja, I met Miguel. He was an experienced sailor. We had many conversations together. When I told him about my days spent living in a motorhome and then the adaptation of being on bicycles, he told me that I could live on a boat without a problem. I was so enthralled. I could not contain myself, and it was something I would have never believed was possible before. So we talked about how to make this new dream of mine a reality. He was very patient to answer all of my questions. He proposed that we could fly back to Seattle, where he had a cabin in the forest, that I could stay with him as long as I want to, and he would find a boat for me. From there was no stopping. I was smiling from year to year, putting everything into making this my reality. After a month of research in the Seattle area, I could not believe my eyes. I had found a Cal 24 for $1,000. I bought it. Miguel taught me how to sail, and I spent the rest of my holiday on it. It was truly a dream come true. From a bicycle and a tent, I stepped up to being an owner of a sailboat, my own private island. I sailed around Gulf Islands and the Puget Sound, which is a magnificent area. So when it was time to go back to Switzerland, my initial plan was to go to university, but that gap year had completely changed my perspective. I wanted to become a boat builder. Either you have a really well-paying job, so you can pay for boat and maintenance, which actually add up after a certain size, or you learn to do things yourself. So I chose the latter. I found one boatyard that only had sailboats, and they accepted me to be their apprentice, so I started there.
I think my parents had something to do with it. Both my parents have sailed around the world on board tall ships, but when they decided to have kids, they bought a house and they never sailed again. So I had never actually been sailing with them, but I did hear lots of stories about, how cool sailing could be, some of the things that happen to you when you're out on the water and exploring islands. But I never really put much thought into it until I was 13 years old. When I was younger, I was really into reading. So I found a book about a young girl who sailed around the world solo. Maiden Voyage by Tanya Abbey. Some of you might know it, but I read it and it enthralled me. I mean, here was this girl not so much older than I was at the time, and she sailed around the world. She found love. She saw the most beautiful places. She had her own home with her. She grew up infinite amounts. She had written this book, and it just seemed to me to be the most ideal existence. So I wanted to learn how to sail, and the only person I knew with a sailboat was my swim coach, Tibor. So I enlisted him to teach me how to sail. And Tibor became a huge mentor of mine. I still visit him whenever I'm in Canada and we go sailing together. But somehow I just knew that this was right for me. At my high school graduation, I listed sailing around the world as one of my future ambitions, which, looking back, was really funny because at that time I had never done an overnight passage on a boat. I had never docked a boat. I had never sailed a boat in anything over like 10 knot winds. I mean, I really knew nothing about them. I didn't know the first thing about boat maintenance. But every single moment that I spent on boats, every single book I read about them, every single time I saw a boat even sailing past the beach, my heart would tug towards them. And I knew that I had to pursue this.
Since the boatyard was by a lake which was pretty far from home, I didn't hesitate to ask my future boss if he would mind a trailer in between all the boats. He said yes. So after finding a trailer, I pretty much started living at the boatyard. Also because wages as an apprentice are $300 a month, and in Switzerland you cannot get very far with that. I installed a little kitchen in the boatyard. I had my shower there and I slept in the caravan. After a few weeks working at the boatyard, I noticed a boat laying around in the corner. I could tell that it had some severe damage. I asked my boss what had happened to it, and he told me that it had fallen off the crane 20 feet onto concrete. I was intrigued because it was exactly the kind of boat that Miguel had told me to look for. So I had a few serious looks at the survey. I asked opinion of my teacher. I asked opinion of my boss. Pretty much everybody said not to do it, but I was so passionate about this new job of mine, and I really wanted to make this happen. I also didn't have a lot of money. I inherited a few $1,000s from my grandparents, and those were to be used for my education. So I used them for living in the boatyard during my apprenticeship. It was like $500 a month extra to the $300 I earned. The apprenticeship was Monday to Friday. We would start work at 7 a.m. and work till 5 p.m. with 1 hour lunch break. I would spend every extra hour after 5 p.m. working on restoring Magic Carpet. It was quite a process for me because I was learning by doing. I would go shopping once a week, make simple meals, sometimes cook at midnight, get up at 6 a.m. in the next morning to start work again. Weekends were actually more productive because then I could work for 2 days straight on the boat. And also I had a very good boss. It was also an agreement that we made since I bought the boat from the boatyard and they didn't have to deal with it anymore. We agreed on me being able to work on it in the boatyard for 1 full month in summers, which helped a lot because during the winter months the boat was under a tarp on the outside storage, and that made it really difficult because just bringing a ladder to the boat and unwrapping took like an hour, and that was really precious time to work on the boat. It took quite a few sacrifices. I didn't see my friends anymore. Some came visit here and there, but I was really wanting to make this happen. I had spent best days of my life on my little KL24, and I wanted to make this a reality.
When I was 16, I graduated high school and I moved to university. I was living just in a college dorm, and I figured that my sailing dreams would be put on hold until I finished my bachelor's degree. But the dream never left my mind. And in second year university, I was walking along the local dock, and I saw a boat that captured my attention. She was just beautiful. She was so gorgeous and unique and different than any of the other boats in the harbor. And I was standing there looking at her for quite a while, and this guy came up and started talking to me. And he asked me if it was my boat. And I was kind of embarrassed, and I was like, no, sorry, I don't mean to snoop, I think it's a beautiful boat. And he said, no, I'm just asking because I have no idea who the owners are. I live on a boat down on this harbor, and I know everyone here, but I don't know who owns this boat. And it's such a beautiful boat. It deserves love, but nobody's ever here to care for it. And you could tell that that was true. There was varnish coming off. The tarps were all a mess and kind of half in the water, half on the boat. And it got me thinking. In the window, there was a faded message written in Sharpie with the contact information of the owners. So I basically sent the owners an email. I sent them a really nice email about who I was and my kind of irrational dreams of sailing. And I asked them if I could somehow be a part of that boat's future. I wasn't really sure in what capacity. I was just kind of throwing it out there, see what would happen. Well, about 5 days later, I got a reply. And the reply started with, "She's yours. You can have her for $1." And that's how I got my first sailboat. I was terrified. I was so terrified to accept that offer. I didn't know anything about marina fees. I didn't know anything about boat maintenance. It was a wooden boat, so I really didn't know anything about boat maintenance. But I had the determination to learn. I was a fairly determined little kid. Once I latched my mind onto something, I kind of didn't let go. And boats were a thing that I didn't want to let go of, so I took the offer. I also knew that I had a really amazing sort of safety net in my parents because my dad knows pretty much everything there is to know about boats. Of course, that's impossible, but I mean, he's really such an experienced mariner. By profession, he's a first-class marine engineer, but he sailed around the world on wooden boats. He was the sailmaker on board, so he knows everything from the rigging to the woodworking, craftsmanship, to the engine, to sailing itself. And that was really amazing to have that support, even though he was far-ish away. It was about 2 or 3 hours to get to where I was at university. I had that support. I could pick up the phone and ask a question and get a really good answer. And he came and he helped a lot with the boat. I would not have been able to do it without him, I think. So that boat captured my heart, and it solidified the fact that boats and sailing are what I want to do. That was a dream come true for me. I started living on the boat after a little while. The harbor was right in downtown Squamish. I had my own apartment. Apartment meaning the boat. I was 18 years old, and I was just as happy as I could be. So after I graduated from my 4-year university program, I took a job in the Mediterranean on board a tall ship, just kind of to follow in my parents' footsteps. I wanted to see that side of sailing. I wanted to learn more about the traditional sailing methods. And while I was in the Mediterranean, I met Aladino. He was sailing another boat, not Magic Carpet, that wasn't finished yet, but another boat. And I met him. I could tell that he was someone really special. And I decided to go visit him in Switzerland after I was finished my contract on board the tall ship. So that's what I did, and I never left. And we finished Magic Carpet together. So Aladino had done most of the hard work already. Her hull was already intact when I got there. So it was like finishing stuff. We designed the electrical system and installed that. We put all the rigging back on. We put the interior back together because Aladino had taken everything out of the interior. And we were able to launch the boat in late June of this year. I think the first thing that we have to point out is like during this whole process, we didn't have other things.
For example, at my age, I am slightly embarrassed that I don't have the driver license yet. It was never one of my priorities to spend that much money to get a license in Switzerland, so I still don't have one. I never had a car. I don't go shopping. I'm not very big on shopping. I buy what I need, often in a secondhand store, and yeah, live really simple.
We didn't have apartments that we were paying for. I did have university, but I was really lucky that I got a very good scholarship to university, and what was left over from the scholarship, my parents split with me, so I was able to afford that. I worked full-time in the summers, and then I also worked 2 jobs part-time during university, so I was really busy, but I was able to pay it off without debt and enough to pay for my boat as well. It was hard work. And I mean, we also have to point out that we're lucky to come from countries, I mean Canada and Switzerland respectively, where you can work and you can earn decent money. Not every country in the world is like that, so we acknowledge that we're really lucky to be from places where that is possible.
A lot thanks to our parents starting from the bottom and us being able to jump in at a better place.
Yeah,
having good opportunities.
Yeah. Like we always had that parental support, even if it wasn't monetary support, like they had houses and we always knew that there was somewhere we could go, you know, and that assurance is really valuable.
Totally. Love you, Mom. Love you, Dad.
Likewise. So we pursued these dreams of our own accord, but we're really fortunate to have parents who not only supported the mission, but who believed in us. I mean, they weren't kind of like suburban parents that disagreed with our choices or thought that we were crazy for doing it because they had done similar things in their youth. They were also broke in their youth. They had really good lives. Yeah.
They cannot blame me since, those are all things I learned from them, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're really, really fortunate. But we also have done a lot to get here, and we've kept that goal, I think, always in sight. We've always known that sailing is what we want to do, and so we've given everything we have and taken every opportunity available to get here. Buying an apartment or a house or owning a car or anything like that is totally out of our sight. Like, not only in terms of interest, but also in terms of feasibility. Like, all of our money, all of it, goes to this boat. All right, so basically we want to sail for as long as possible to as many places as possible. That's our long-term goal. We want to be lifelong cruisers. How we're going to manage that financially is basically the same way that we've done it so far, which is to sail as much as possible, and when we need money, we stop and we work. Either we go back to Canada, or we go back to Switzerland, or we get work wherever we are with the boat. However it happens. Aladino's boat building skills are very mobile. I'm able to teach a little bit of violin online, which brings in not very much, but a tiny bit of money. We could scale that up a little bit maybe.
My apprenticeship was also part of the idea of being able to work in every harbor that we pull in. It's not as easy as it sounds, but that was a little bit of my idea also behind of learning those skills, to be able to stop somewhere and work right there.
So we're just going to keep going and make it happen. We don't expect to ever have flourishing bank accounts, but that's how it is. We have already We've been together only a year. It's really not that long, but we have so many memories of long nights in the boatyard, finishing the boat, of stormy seas, of stormy anchorages, of beautiful seas. And I think those memories are so much more valuable than how much money we have in our bank accounts. So that said, in terms of the immediate future, what we're doing, we've pretty much spent all of our money on the refit and on the past few months of cruising in the Mediterranean. So over winter, we will be returning to Switzerland to work and build up our accounts again. I do have a job through Aladino polishing boats, and Aladino is going to be working in the same boatyard where he did his apprenticeship. We're going to be living in the same trailer. It's going to be negative 15 degrees Celsius.
Yay.
There's no insulation in the trailer and barely any heating. It'll be fun. But those times of, I guess, hardship, if you can call it that, are worth it to us for continuing this adventure. So that said, about the financial side of things, we are really excited about this YouTube channel and how it's taking off, because that could actually have really big implications for our future. A few of our subscribers, you guys, have actually commented on our previous videos and told us to get a Patreon account. And we are really humbled and frankly amazed that anyone would even suggest that to us.
Totally.
In case you don't know, Patreon is basically like a subscription sort of thing where you can pledge to donate a certain amount of money, $2 or $3 or whatever it is, to your favorite artists per video that they create. And a lot of sailing channels, well, not a lot, but a few sailing channels have actually succeeded in creating full-time livings through Patreon, through the videos they post on YouTube, and are now able to sail full-time, which, I mean, we don't want to get too excited about that ever becoming our possibility, because maybe it won't, but it is something. We've started a Patreon account. So if you like our videos and you've been watching them, we'll leave a link in the description and have a look at it. We've set up a bunch of rewards, so it's not just like a one-way street. I mean, if you're going to help us, we want to help you, and there's different ways that we will pledge to do that. Also on Patreon, you can see those rewards listed. So there you have it. There's our story about how we both got started with boats, about how we met, and how we've made our dreams come true, and how we plan to continue making our dreams come true. It's not always easy. The winter in Switzerland is not going to be fun for me, but those are the sacrifices you make. Life is not always super fun. And at this point, it's my philosophy that I would rather work really hard and then have really intense moments of joy, rather than just kind of like a mediocre sort of existence all the time. That's our decision. It's not for everyone, absolutely, but we're happy with it. So as for the future of the videos, we are going to be posting for a long time to come. Don't you worry. We might take breaks every now and then to go work, but we'll always start again. Thank you so much for watching our channel. We hope that this is a little bit helpful or inspirational or whatever it is to you. And we'll see you in the next videos.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.